I've been missing for 3 days now. At least that's what my watch says. The batteries in this thing have never failed me before, but time feels wrong here. Stretched too thin in some places, compressed in others. They'll come looking for me soon. My supervisor, Mike Brennan, is probably already calling in search teams. Protocol says to wait 24 hours, but Mike won't wait that long. Not after what happened to Tyler. The blood on my uniform has dried to a rusty brown. It isn't mine. I keep telling myself that as I huddle against the base of an ancient oak, its roots curling around me like protective arms. Or prison bars. I haven't decided which. When they find me, if they find me, I'll have to explain. About the rules, about why I broke them, about what happened when I did. It wasn't always like this. For 6 years, I patrolled these woods without incident. Shawnee State Forest, the Little Smokies of Ohio, as the tourism brochures call it. 63,000 acres of rolling hills and hidden valleys in Scioto County, right along the Ohio River. I knew every trail, every overlook, every seasonal creek bed, or at least I thought I did. 3 months ago, Tyler Kovach disappeared during a routine patrol of the Shawnee Backpack Trail. I was supposed to be with him that day, covering the northern loop while he took the southern. But I called in sick. Food poisoning from a questionable taco truck in Portsmouth the night before. They found his ranger hat 2 days later, perched carefully on a moss-covered log a quarter mile off the trail, like someone had placed it there deliberately. That was all they ever found. A week after the search was called off, Ranger Chief Diana Marshall called me into her office, handed me a sealed envelope with my name written on it in neat block letters. "After every incident, we update the rules," she said, her voice hollow. She'd lost weight since Tyler disappeared, deep shadows forming beneath her eyes. "Memorize them. Follow them. No exceptions." "Every incident?" I asked. "What do you mean, every incident? There haven't been any incidents." The look she gave me still haunts me. Part pity, part fear. "Liam Williams went missing in 2011, before your time," she said quietly. "Jennifer Ruiz in 2006. Chris Oakley in 1997. We don't talk about it. We just update the rules." I opened my mouth to ask more questions, but she held up her hand. "Just follow the rules, Nathan. Please." Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper. 7 rules, typed out in plain text. No letterhead, no official Ohio Department of Natural Resources logo, nothing to indicate it was an official document. Just 7 rules that made no sense. I thought it was grief. A department in mourning, creating ritual to cope with random tragedy. I almost threw the paper away. God, I wish I had, but I didn't. I folded it carefully and tucked it into my wallet, behind my driver's license and the faded photo of my dad on his last fishing trip before cancer took him. I didn't memorize the rules, didn't even read them properly. Not until yesterday, when the sun dipped below the ridgeline too fast, way too fast, and darkness swallowed the forest in minutes instead of hours. Not until I heard the singing coming from Raven Rock, a sound like children chanting in a language I'd never heard. Not until it was almost too late. Now I'm trapped, trying to follow rules I barely understand, rules written in bureaucratic language that leaves too much room for interpretation. And interpretation can be deadly here. I know that now. If I survive until morning, I swear I'll never patrol alone again. I'll make sure every ranger knows the rules, the real rules, and understands what's at stake. If I survive. The shadows are moving again, moving wrong. And I swear I just heard Tyler's voice calling my name from the darkness. I should start from the beginning, while I still can. Hello, viewers. If you wish your stories or experiences to be narrated by me, share them on our own subreddit, which you can join from the description below. I will pick the stories from the community and narrate them, and every once in a while, we will host a 3-hour story compilation. It was the first warm day of April when things started to change. The kind of spring day that feels like a gift after an Ohio winter, 60 degrees and sunny, the forest floor just beginning to green with early wildflowers. Dutchman's breeches and spring beauties poked through the leaf litter, and the earthy scent of thawing soil filled the air. I was finishing up some paperwork in the Turkey Creek headquarters when Diana stuck her head in my door. Her expression was all business, but that wasn't unusual. Since becoming Chief Ranger 3 years ago, she'd grown into the role. Professional, direct, no nonsense. "Nathan, I need you to take over Tyler's sector," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "At least until we hire someone new." I nodded, ignoring the twist in my gut at Tyler's name. 2 months since his disappearance, and we still tiptoed around it like a fresh wound. "Sure thing. When do I start?" "Tomorrow, 6 a.m. She hesitated, then added, "You'll be solo patrolling sectors 4 through 6. That includes the Backpack Trail and Raven Rock area." My pen paused mid-signature. Solo patrolling had been unofficially suspended since Tyler vanished. We'd all been working in pairs, an unspoken precaution that nobody questioned. "Is that protocol?" I asked carefully. Diana's jaw tightened. "It's necessary. We're understaffed and it's peak season." She pulled a folded paper from her pocket and placed it on my desk. "The rules. I know I gave them to you before, but you need to review them thoroughly." I stared at the paper, recognizing it as a copy of the one in my wallet, still unread. "Diana, what's really going on here?" She sat down across from me, suddenly looking exhausted. "Nathan, I can only tell you what I know. And what I know is that following these rules keeps rangers safe in certain parts of the forest. I don't understand it either, but I've been here 20 years, and I've seen what happens when people ignore them." "You're talking like there's something supernatural going on," I said with a nervous laugh. She didn't smile back. "Just memorize the rules, Nathan." "Please." After she left, I finally unfolded the paper. Ranger protocols for sectors 4 through 6. Patrols must be completed between sunrise and sunset. Begin your return to headquarters no later than 4:30 p.m. regardless of the season. If you hear someone calling your name, respond only if you can clearly see the person's face. If you cannot see their face, do not respond and proceed immediately to the nearest trail junction. Should you encounter hikers after 4:30 p.m., direct them to the nearest exit trail. Do not follow them, even if they appear to need assistance. Whistling is prohibited at all times while on patrol. If you hear whistling, do not attempt to locate the source. Raven Rock is off limits between 3:15 p.m. and 10 a.m. If you must conduct official business there, remain no longer than 15 minutes and do not sit down at any time. If you notice the same hiker 3 times during a single patrol, return to headquarters immediately via the most direct route. Do not interact with this individual. Should you encounter any items arranged in a circle, rocks, branches, litter, etc., do not disturb the arrangement. Report the location to the Chief Ranger upon your return, but do not mark it on any map. I read the list twice, then folded it and put it in my breast pocket. It was bizarre, sure, but no more bizarre than some of the other protocols we had, like the detailed procedures for encountering illegal ginseng harvesters, which read like instructions for defusing a bomb. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Tyler, about Diana's worn expression, about those strange rules. Around 2 a.m., I got up and Googled the names she'd mentioned: Liam Williams, Jennifer Ruiz, Chris Oakley. Nothing about missing rangers, but I did find a small article from 1997 about a Forest Service employee who disappeared in Shawnee State Forest. The article was brief, noting only that search efforts had been unsuccessful. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was all bureaucratic superstition, the kind of thing that develops in any workplace after a tragedy. Someone disappears during a thunderstorm. Suddenly, there's an unwritten rule about not patrolling in the rain. It happens. I arrived at headquarters before dawn, thermos full of coffee, hiking boots already laced tight. The building was quiet, just the night dispatcher finishing his shift. "Morning, Nathan," called Bill Harmon from behind the radio desk. "Heading out to Tyler's old route?" I nodded, checking my gear one last time. "Yeah, solo patrol." Bill's friendly smile faltered slightly. "Got your protocols memorized?" "You know about those too?" I asked, surprised. He nodded gravely. "Been here since '99. Learned the hard way how important they are." He tapped his prosthetic leg, which I'd always assumed was from military service. "Take them seriously, son." For the first time, I wondered if I was missing something important. "I will," I promised, patting my pocket where the rules sat folded. As I stepped outside into the pre-dawn darkness, my radio crackled with Bill's voice. "And Nathan, if anything doesn't feel right, you get yourself back here. Screw the patrol route." I raised a hand in acknowledgement, but didn't turn around. The forest waited ahead, still and silent in the gray morning light. I didn't know it then, but that was the last normal morning I would ever experience at Shawnee State Forest. The sun crested the eastern ridge as I hit the trailhead for the north loop of the Shawnee Backpack Trail. Normally, I enjoyed this time of morning, dew still heavy on the undergrowth, wildlife active, the forest slowly warming. But today, something felt off. I chalked it up to nerves. This was Tyler's route, after all. My gear felt heavier than usual: standard patrol pack, first aid kit, radio, GPS, citation book I rarely used. Most hikers in Shawnee were respectful. It wasn't like Hocking Hills, where we constantly battled graffiti and littering. I checked my watch. 6:45 a.m., 9 hours before the mandatory return time mentioned in the rules. Plenty of time to cover my assigned sectors. The morning passed uneventfully. I stopped to chat with a pair of birders from Cincinnati who were excited about spotting a cerulean warbler. Helped a family from Dayton interpret the trail markers at a confusing junction. Documented a washed-out section of trail that maintenance would need to address. Normal ranger stuff. Around noon, I stopped at a wooden bench overlooking a valley and unpacked my lunch: peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and trail mix. As I ate, I pulled out the rules again, studying them more carefully. In the daylight, they seemed even more ridiculous. Whistling prohibited. Specific times for Raven Rock. Not sitting down there. I shook my head and repacked my bag. My route would take me near Raven Rock anyway. Maybe I'd see something there that would explain the strange restrictions. The trail to Raven Rock wound through stands of oak and hickory, climbing steadily toward the ridgeline. The forest felt different here. Older somehow, the trees more gnarled, the undergrowth denser. Probably just my imagination working overtime. I checked my watch again, 2:30 p.m., well before the 3:15 restriction for Raven Rock. I picked up my pace slightly. Raven Rock itself wasn't particularly impressive as Ohio landmarks go, just a sandstone outcropping offering views of the Friendship Hills across the Ohio River. Popular with hikers, but nothing special, except today it was empty, unusual for such a nice day. I walked to the edge, taking in the view. Kentucky stretched out across the river, green hills rolling into the distance. Everything looked normal, peaceful. Beautiful, isn't it? I nearly jumped out of my skin. Turning, I found an older man standing a few feet away, dressed in worn hiking clothes and a faded Ohio State cap. He smiled, revealing crooked teeth. "Didn't mean to startle you, Ranger," he said. "Mine tends to wander up here." "No problem," I replied, hand drifting away from my radio. "Just enjoying the view before heading back down." The man nodded. "Smart to head down early. Gets strange up here later in the day." My interest piqued. "Strange how?" He shrugged, looking out over the valley. "Just strange. The light changes. Sounds carry differently." He tapped his temple. "Plays tricks on your mind." I studied him carefully. "You come here often?" "Every few weeks. Been hiking these trails for 40 years. He extended a weathered hand. "Walter Jenkins, from Otway." I shook it. "Nathan Sawyer. How long have you been up here today?" "Since about noon. Was just about to pack up myself." He glanced at his watch, then at the sun. "Getting on toward 3. I checked my own watch. 2:47 p.m. "Well, I should continue my patrol," I said. "Have a safe hike down, Mr. Jenkins." He nodded, hoisting his small day pack. "You too, Ranger. Stay on the trails." I watched him disappear down the path, then turned back to the view. Something nagged at me about our encounter, but I couldn't place it. I did another quick perimeter check of the rock formation, finding nothing unusual except a pile of small stones arranged in what might have been a crude arrow pointing east into the denser forest. Rule 7 flashed in my mind. Items arranged in circles. This wasn't a circle, but something about it felt deliberate. I took a photo with my phone but didn't disturb the stones. My watch read 3:05 p.m. Time to go, according to the rules. The descent from Raven Rock was steeper than I remembered. I kept checking my watch, a growing unease pushing me to move faster. 3:12 p.m., almost at the trail junction. That's when I heard it. Whistling. A simple tune. Something vaguely familiar, but just off-key enough to be unsettling. Rule 4. Whistling is prohibited. If you hear whistling, do not attempt to locate the source. I kept walking, quickening my pace. The whistling continued, sometimes seeming to come from my left, sometimes from behind me, never getting closer or farther away. The junction appeared ahead, and I nearly ran toward it. The moment I turned onto the main trail, the whistling stopped. I paused, catching my breath, feeling foolish. It was probably just another hiker, oblivious to my ranger superstitions. My radio crackled to life, making me jump again. "Nathan, this is headquarters." Diana's voice, slightly distorted by static. "What's your location?" I unclipped the radio. "Just left Raven Rock, heading south on the main trail." A pause then. "It's 3:25. You cut it close." I frowned, checking my watch. 3:17 p.m. "I'm fine. Left before 3:15. Another pause, longer this time. "Your tracker shows you were at Raven Rock until 3:22, Nathan." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. My watch must be slow. "Proceed directly back to headquarters," Diana ordered, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Do not detour." "Copy that," I replied, unsettled. I picked up my pace, eager to put distance between myself and Raven Rock. The forest seemed different now. Shadows deeper, birdsong muted. About a mile down the trail, I spotted a familiar figure ahead. the Ohio State cap visible through the trees, Walter Jenkins moving at a good clip for his age. "Mr. Jenkins?" I called, hurrying to catch up. He didn't turn or acknowledge me. Strange, but maybe he hadn't heard. I caught up to him at the next bend. "Heading out early too, huh?" Walter finally turned, and I stopped cold. His face was wrong. Not dramatically so, but subtly distorted. Eyes too widely spaced, mouth stretched slightly too wide. And his expression was blank, utterly devoid of the friendly openness from earlier. "Nathan Sawyer," he said, his voice flat. Not a question. I took an instinctive step back. I need to get back to headquarters." Walter smiled, that too wide mouth stretching further. "Don't worry. Still plenty of daylight left." I nodded stiffly and moved past him, fighting the urge to run. Once around the next bend, I broke into a jog, heart hammering. Rule 6 echoed in my mind. If you notice the same hiker 3 times during a single patrol, return to headquarters immediately via the most direct route. Do not interact with this individual. I'd seen Walter twice now. The rules suddenly didn't seem so ridiculous. The trail stretched ahead, longer than I remembered. Shadows lengthened, even though my watch showed it was barely past 3:30 p.m. "Nathan?" My name called from somewhere off-trail to my right. A familiar voice, Tyler's voice. Rule 2. If you hear someone calling your name, respond only if you can clearly see the person's face. I kept walking, pace steady, eyes forward. "Nathan, help me! I'm lost!" My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. It couldn't be Tyler. Tyler was gone. "Please, Nathan! I can see you." I broke into a run, not looking back, not veering from the trail. The voice called twice more, then faded. I didn't stop running until I reached the picnic point junction, where the trail opened into a small clearing with a map kiosk. I bent over, hands on knees, gasping for breath. When I straightened, Walter Jenkins was standing at the far side of the clearing, watching me with that blank expression. 3 times. I'd seen him 3 times. Without a word, I turned and sprinted down the most direct trail toward headquarters, the weight of my pack forgotten, driven by a primal fear I'd never felt before. The rules weren't superstition, they were survival. I burst through the headquarters door at 4:17 p.m. according to the wall clock. My watch said 3:52. The 25-minute discrepancy made my skin crawl. Diana looked up from her desk, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. "Nathan? What happened?" I stood there, breath heaving, sweat plastering my uniform to my back. The fluorescent light seemed too bright after the forest shadows. "I saw him 3 times, I managed, and I heard whistling. And Tyler..." I cut myself off, suddenly aware of how crazy I sounded. Diana was on her feet immediately. "My office, now." I followed her down the hallway, past curious looks from the administrative staff. The moment we were behind closed doors, she turned to me. "Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out." So I did. Raven Rock, Walter Jenkins with his increasingly wrong face, the whistling Tyler's voice calling from the woods. As I spoke, Diana took notes in a small leather-bound journal I'd never seen before. When I finished, she sat silently for a long moment. "You did well," she finally said. "You followed the rules." "Diana, what the hell is going on?" My initial fear was giving way to frustration. What was that out there? Who or what was pretending to be Walter Jenkins? She closed her notebook. "I don't know, not exactly. None of us do, but we have theories." "What theories?" I demanded. "This isn't the time for secrets." "You think I don't know that?" she snapped, then visibly composed herself. Look, all I can tell you is what's been pieced together over the years. Sectors 4 through 6 have always been different. The indigenous peoples of this region, mostly Shawnee, avoided certain areas within what's now the forest. Early settlers reported strange occurrences, children going missing, people returning changed. I slumped into a chair. You're talking about ghost stories, folklore. I'm talking about patterns, she corrected. Documented incidents going back over a century. The rules evolved from those patterns. So what was out there today? What happened to Tyler? Diana's face hardened. I don't know what happened to Tyler, but I do know he was scheduled for Raven Rock that day, and his GPS tracker showed he stayed there past 4 p.m. A chill ran through me. He broke Rule 5. Yes. And the thing that looked like Walter Jenkins? She opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a manila folder. Walter Jenkins, 68, from Otway. Reported missing 3 weeks ago while hiking near Raven Rock. This is from his driver's license. She slid a photocopy across the desk. The man in the photo was undeniably Walter. Same craggy face, same kind eyes. But the Walter I'd met on the trail had been subtly wrong, increasingly so with each encounter. What about the whistling? Tyler's voice, I asked, pushing the photo away. We call them lures, Diana said simply. They try to draw you off trail. The deeper you go into those sectors, especially after hours, the more lures you encounter. They? Who's they? Diana shook her head. If I knew that, I'd have better answers for the families of missing rangers. She looked at me intently. Nathan, I'm pulling you from solo patrol. You'll work with Mike in sectors 1 through 3 for the rest of the week. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by shame. I'm not scared, Diana. I can handle it. This isn't about courage, she said sharply. We follow protocols. You've had an encounter, so you're on restricted duty for 72 hours. Standard procedure. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion was setting in. The adrenaline crash left me drained, my limbs heavy. Fine, what do I do now? Go home, rest, and Nathan? Her expression softened slightly. Don't stop for anyone on your drive home, even if they look like someone you know. The implication sent another chill down my spine. You think it can follow me out of the forest? I think precautions cost nothing, she replied carefully. Call me when you get home. The drive to my apartment in Portsmouth normally took 25 minutes. That day it felt like hours. Every shadow on the roadside seemed to move. Twice I thought I saw someone standing at the edge of the trees watching. By the time I pulled into my parking spot, my knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I called Diana as instructed, then checked all my locks twice before collapsing on the couch. I didn't even have the energy to shower away the forest grime. Sleep claimed me almost instantly. The dreams came just as quickly. I was back on the trail, but everything was wrong. The trees grew sideways, branches reaching like grasping hands. Raven Rock towered impossibly high, its shadow stretching for miles. And everywhere I turned, there were circles, circles of stones, circles of branches, circles of dead leaves spinning like tiny whirlpools. Walter Jenkins stood at the center of each circle, his face stretching and contracting like melting wax, mouth opening too wide to reveal darkness where his throat should be. Nathan Sawyer, he said in that flat voice. Still plenty of daylight left. I tried to run, but the trail looped back on itself. Every turn brought me back to Walter, his form changing subtly each time. Taller, thinner, his OSU cap transforming into a hood of shadows. Natan! Tyler's voice again, desperate and afraid. I ran toward it, forgetting the rules in my dream logic. I found him kneeling in a perfect circle of white stones. Blood streaked his ranger uniform, his face gaunt and pale. "You have to help me, Nathan," he pleaded. "I can't get out of the circle." I reached for him and woke gasping, sweat-soaked, on my couch. The digital clock on my cable box read 3:15 a.m., the exact time Raven Rock became forbidden territory. Sleep didn't return that night. I sat awake, lights on, replaying every moment of my patrol. There had to be logical explanations. Walter Jenkins could have been a different hiker who resembled the missing man. The whistling could have been the wind. Tyler's voice could have been my guilt manifesting as auditory hallucination. But no matter how I rationalized, I couldn't shake the feeling of wrongness that had permeated the forest. At 7 a.m., I gave up on rest and called Mike Brennan, my new patrol partner. "Hey, Nathan," he answered, sounding like he'd been awake for hours. Mike was one of those disgusting morning people. "Diana told me we're paired up for a few days." "Yeah," I said, relieved at the normality of his voice. "I had a weird experience yesterday." "So I heard. The Jenkins thing, right? Man, that's creepy even by Shawnee standards." I hesitated. "You've had experiences too?" Mike's tone grew serious. "Everyone who's been here more than a year has stories, Nathan. Most of us just don't talk about them." "Why not?" "Because it sounds crazy. Because we like our jobs and don't want to be labeled as the nutjob rangers who believe in forest monsters." He paused. "And because talking about it sometimes makes it worse." "Makes what worse?" Another pause. "The attention from whatever's out there." I thought of my dream, of Walter's too wide mouth and the perfect circles of stones. "Mike, what happened to Tyler? The real story." The silence stretched so long I thought he might have hung up. "Mike?" "Tyler was working a double shift," he finally said, voice low, as if afraid of being overheard. "He radioed in at 3 p.m. from Raven Rock, said he was documenting some trail erosion. Diana told him to head back immediately. He acknowledged, but didn't leave." My stomach tightened. "How did you know?" "His GPS tracker stayed at Raven Rock until 4:47 p.m., then moved about 20 yards off trail and stopped transmitting. The search teams found his GPS unit at that spot, smashed like it had been stomped on. But no other signs of him. Not a footprint, not a thread from his uniform. Nothing. I thought of my dream, of Tyler trapped in a circle of stones. "You think he's still out there?" "I think," Mike said carefully, "that the things you see and hear in sectors 4 through 6 aren't always what they appear to be. And I think we should stick to sectors 1 through 3 for the next few days and follow every rule in that damn manual." "Agreed," I said, suppressing a shiver. "See you at headquarters in an hour?" "I'll bring coffee," Mike promised, then added, "And Nathan? Check your back seat before you get in your car." The call ended, leaving me staring at my phone. "Check my back seat?" I looked out my apartment window to the parking lot where my Forest Service SUV sat under a streetlight. Nothing unusual, no one lurking nearby. But Mike's warning echoed in my head as I showered and dressed in a fresh uniform. By the time I headed downstairs, daylight had strengthened, the morning bustle of Portsmouth replacing the night's eerie silence. I checked my back seat anyway, feeling foolish as I opened the door and confirmed it was empty. The drive to headquarters was uneventful, the forest beautiful in the morning light. It was hard to reconcile the peaceful landscape with yesterday's experiences. Mike was waiting in the parking lot with 2 coffee cups and a forced smile. Ready for a thrilling day of checking picnic areas for trash and telling people not to feed the wildlife. Never been more ready for boring ranger duties in my life, I admitted. As we walked inside, Diana intercepted us, her expression grave. Nathan, Mike, there's been a change of plans. My heart sank. What happened? They found something, she said, voice tight. At Raven Rock. I need you both to come with me. And just like that, my hope for a normal day evaporated, replaced by the certainty that whatever waited for us at Raven Rock would only deepen the mystery and the danger of Shawnee State Forest. The drive to Raven Rock felt like a funeral procession. Diana drove the lead vehicle, a Forest Service truck with emergency lights flashing but no siren. Mike and I followed in another SUV, silent except for the occasional crackle of the radio. 2 sheriff's deputies brought up the rear. What exactly did they find? I finally asked as we turned onto the fire road that would take us closer to Raven Rock. The rough track saved us a 3-mile hike from the main parking area. Mike kept his eyes on Diana's truck ahead. Search and rescue volunteers doing a training exercise found Tyler's phone. My breath caught. His phone? Not just his hat? Yeah, and apparently there's something on it. Mike's voice was tight. That's all Diana told me. The vehicles stopped where the fire road ended, still a half-mile hike from Raven Rock. As we exited, I checked my watch instinctively. 9:27 a.m. Safe, according to Rule 5. Raven Rock was only off limits from 3:15 p.m. to 10 a.m. by mere minutes. Diana gathered us at the trailhead. The phone was discovered in a hollow tree about 50 yards from the main outlook. Battery dead, of course, but the SD card was intact. Tech pulled what they could. And? I prompted when she paused. Pictures and a video, taken the day Tyler disappeared. Her face was carefully composed. I want you both to see the site where it was found, and then we'll review what was on the phone. The deputies will remain at the trailhead. The deputies looked relieved, which didn't boost my confidence. One of them, a stocky veteran named Harding, who I'd worked with on search and rescue operations before, caught my eye and gave me a slight nod. He knew something. We hiked in silence, following Diana's brisk pace. The forest seemed normal in the morning light. Birds calling, squirrels chattering, the occasional rustle of larger wildlife moving through the undergrowth. Here, Diana said finally, stopping at a massive oak. A section of its trunk had rotted away years ago, creating a hollow large enough for a child to hide in. Yellow crime scene tape marked it off, fluttering in the light breeze. The phone was wedged in the back, she continued, shining her flashlight into the hollow. Volunteer reached in to clear spider webs and felt it. Mike peered inside. No other personal effects? No sign of struggle? Nothing, Diana confirmed. Just the phone, deliberately hidden. By Tyler? I asked. Diana's expression hardened. Or by whatever took him. The bluntness of her statement hung in the air between us. Not whoever, but whatever. Let's continue to the rock, she said after a moment. I want to show you something else. Raven Rock looked different in the daylight, just a scenic overlook. Nothing sinister about it. But as we approached, I noticed Diana's pace slowing, her hand moving to rest on her sidearm. What is it? Mike asked, catching her change in demeanor. Look at the ground, she said, quietly. At first, I saw nothing unusual, Then, as we drew closer, I noticed them. Small white stones arranged in a perfect circle, perhaps 4 feet in diameter, centered on the main outlook area. My dream flashed into my mind. Tyler, kneeling in a circle of white stones, unable to leave. "That wasn't here yesterday during my patrol," I said, my mouth dry. "And it wasn't here when the volunteers found the phone 2 hours ago," Diana added. "The deputies swept the area before we arrived." Mike took a step back. "We should leave. Now." Diana nodded, but instead of retreating, she pulled out her phone. "First, you need to see what was on Tyler's phone." She pulled up a video and held it out so we could all see. The timestamp showed 4:32 p.m. on the day Tyler disappeared. The video was shaky, clearly shot while walking. Tyler's voice came through, breathless. "I know I should be heading back, but I keep hearing something from off-trail. If anyone finds this phone, there's something wrong with this place." The camera swung wildly as Tyler apparently started jogging, the image too blurred to make out details. Then he stopped suddenly, and the camera stabilized. "Oh my God," Tyler's voice whispered. The video showed a small clearing just off the trail. In the center was a circle of white stones, identical to the one now on Raven Rock. Inside the circle stood a figure, too distant to see clearly, but wearing what looked like a ranger uniform. Tyler zoomed in, the image pixelating. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face that wasn't quite right, features slightly misaligned, expression blank. It was Tyler himself, or something wearing his appearance. The real Tyler's breathing became erratic. "What the fuck? What the fuck?" The figure in the circle raised a hand, pointing directly at the camera. Tyler cursed, and the video swung wildly again as he apparently turned to run. There was a sound like rushing wind, a cry cut short, and the video ended. None of us spoke for several seconds. "The last photo on his phone was taken 3 minutes later," Diana said quietly, swiping to show us. It was a blurry image of Raven Rock, taken from the woods looking toward the clearing. Standing on the rock was a circle of 7 figures, all wearing ranger uniforms, all with the same wrong face. Tyler's face, but not quite right. "Jesus," Mike whispered. "We're leaving," Diana said firmly, putting her phone away. "Now." A twig snapped in the woods behind us. All 3 of us turned, Diana drawing her sidearm in one smooth motion. Nothing visible, but I felt it. A presence watching from the trees. "Move," Diana ordered, her voice level but urgent. "Back to the vehicles." We retreated down the trail, Diana walking backward, gun still drawn. Nobody spoke until we reached the halfway point to the fire road. "What the hell was that?" Mike finally asked. "That video, those were rangers, or things pretending to be rangers." "I don't know," Diana admitted. "But in 30 years of law enforcement, I've never seen anything like it." "It's why you have the rules," I said, pieces clicking into place. "The rules keep us from ending up like Tyler." Diana nodded. "Each rule exists because someone broke it and paid the price. The timeline restrictions, the prohibition on whistling, the warning about seeing the same hiker 3 times, all documented incidents." "So what do we do?" I asked. "Call in the FBI? The National Guard?" A bitter smile crossed Diana's face. "We've tried. Over the years, we've had state police, FBI, even paranormal investigators. They either find nothing or they don't come back." "So, we just keep following the rules and hope for the best?" Mike sounded incredulous. "We protect the public," Diana corrected. "We warn our staff, and we respect that there are things in these woods that we don't understand. We reached the vehicles, the deputies looking relieved to see us return. Diana instructed them to file a report about the stone circle, but emphasized there was no evidence of criminal activity. After they left, she turned to us. "You're both off patrol duty for the next week. Administrative leave with pay." "Diana?" I started to protest. "This isn't a punishment," she cut me off. "It's protection. Whatever's out there, it knows you now, Nathan. And after today, it knows Mike, too." "The rules," I said slowly. "Rule 2, only respond if you can see their face. Is that because these things can mimic voices?" She nodded. "And Rule 6 about seeing the same hiker 3 times. It's because they get better at mimicking with each encounter. More convincing by the 3rd time." "They're nearly perfect copies," Mike finished. "What about Rule 7? "The circles?" I asked, thinking of the stones at Raven Rock. Diana's expression darkened. "The circles are boundaries or traps. We don't understand exactly how they work, but disturbing them has consequences." Mike ran a hand through his hair. "Diana, we can't just pretend this isn't happening. Tyler could still be out there." A flash of pain crossed her face. "Don't you think I know that? Don't you think I've lost sleep over every ranger who's disappeared on my watch?" She took a deep breath. "Go home. Both of you. I'll call when I have a plan." As we drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. And when I glanced in the rearview mirror, just for a second, I thought I saw a figure in a ranger uniform standing at the edge of the forest, wearing Tyler's face, but not quite right. By the time I blinked, it was gone. Administrative leave sounds great until you're actually on it. By day 3, I was climbing the walls of my apartment, jumping at every sound and staring out the window for hours. I'd watched every streaming show that even remotely interested me and cleaned my place to a standard that would have impressed my military father. At 2 p.m., I finally gave up on daytime television and called Mike. "I'm going stir-crazy," I told him when he answered. "How are you holding up?" "Same," he admitted. "Been researching, though." "Researching what?" "Everything. Shawnee legends, folklore about mimics and doppelgangers, missing persons cases in the forest going back a century." Mike's voice had the intense focus it got when he was tracking something. Before becoming a ranger, he'd been a wildlife biologist specializing in predator behavior. "Find anything useful?" I asked, not expecting much. "Maybe. Can you meet me at the Scioto River in an hour? I'd rather talk in person." The Scioto River was a steakhouse in Portsmouth, usually packed with locals, a public place, safe. "I'll be there," I agreed. I arrived early, securing a corner booth away from the lunch crowd. Mike showed up right on time, carrying a worn leather messenger bag that looked ready to burst with papers. "Thanks for coming," he said, sliding into the booth. Dark circles underlined his eyes, his usual neat appearance slightly rumpled. "You look like hell." "Haven't been sleeping well," he admitted. "Keep dreaming about those stone circles." We ordered coffee for both of us, though it was mid-afternoon, and once the server left, Mike pulled out a manila folder. "So, I went to the university library in Athens," he said without preamble. "Ohio U has an extensive archive on indigenous history in the region. The Shawnee called our forest area the Whispering Place in their language." He slid a photocopy of an old map across the table. Hand-drawn boundaries marked various territories with notes in faded ink. One area, corresponding roughly to our sectors 4 through 6, was labeled with symbols and what looked like a warning. According to the accounts from early French traders, Mike continued, the Shawnee believed this area was thin. Thin? Their word translated as where the worlds are thin. Where our world and something else blur together. Mike's expression was deadly serious. They had rules too, Nathan, remarkably similar to ours. Don't go there after dark. Don't respond to voices. Don't disturb circles of stones. A chill ran through me despite the restaurant's warmth. So this has been happening for centuries. At least, and it gets better. Mike pulled out more papers. I found references to at least 36 disappearances in that specific area since 1902, when records began being kept systematically. Hikers, rangers, hunters, 9 in the last 20 years alone, including Tyler. And 3 other rangers Diana mentioned. Mike tapped the documents. Most of the disappearances share common elements. Victims reported hearing strange noises, seeing familiar people acting oddly, finding stone circles. So, the department has known about this for decades, and just... what? Created some rules and hoped for the best? I couldn't keep the anger from my voice. Mike shrugged. What would you have them do? Close the forest? Tell the public there are shape-shifting monsters in the woods? They'd be laughed out of office, and then some urban explorer idiots would immediately run out there trying to find evidence. He had a point. So what's your theory? What are these things? Mike hesitated. I think they're adaptations. Predators that have evolved the perfect lure for their specific prey. Which is us. Humans, yeah. Think about it. They mimic appearance and voice to create trust or curiosity. They try to get you to break rules, to go off trail, to stay after hours. Classic predator behavior, just with advanced mimicry. Our coffee arrived, and we fell silent until the server left. There's something else, Mike said, lowering his voice. I talked to Bill Harmon, the dispatcher. The guy with the prosthetic leg. Yeah. He lost that leg in 1999 during an incident in Sector 5. Remember he told you he learned the hard way about the rules? Mike leaned forward. He said he saw himself out in the woods. His doppelganger. It was injured, calling for help. He went off trail to assist what he thought was another ranger who looked remarkably like him. My throat tightened. What happened? He wouldn't give details. Just said that by the time Diana found him the next morning, his leg was gone. Clean off, no blood loss. Like it had never been there. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. These things can remove body parts? Or reality gets rewritten somehow around them? Mike rubbed his eyes. Bill thinks that's what happens to the missing people. They don't die, exactly. They become part of the mimic ecology. The forest absorbs them. That's why search teams never find bodies, I said slowly. There aren't any bodies to find. Mike nodded. Just pieces left behind. A hat. A phone. So Tyler is... I couldn't finish the thought. I don't know. But I don't think he's just dead, Nathan. I think it's worse than that. We sat in silence, the restaurant's cheerful bustle a surreal counterpoint to our conversation. Diana called me this morning, Mike finally said. We're back on duty tomorrow. Limited patrol in sectors 1 and 2 only. Relief flooded through me at the prospect of action, of normalcy, swiftly followed by apprehension. You think that's safe? Safer than sitting alone at home, jumping at shadows, he said with a grim smile. Besides, Sectors 1 and 2 have never had incidents. He was right. Getting back to work would help, even if we were restricted to the tourist-heavy, completely normal areas of the forest. As we finished our coffee, Mike hesitated. There's one more thing. It might be nothing, but have you noticed anyone watching you since we went to Raven Rock? The question sent a prickle down my spine. No. Why? Probably just paranoia, he said, not meeting my eyes. But I could swear I've seen the same car drive past my house a few times. Dark blue sedan. Couldn't make out the driver. You think the forest things can drive now? I tried for levity, but it fell flat. No, but... Mike shook his head. Forget it. I'm not sleeping well, like I said. We parted ways in the parking lot, agreeing to meet at headquarters the next morning. As I drove home, I found myself checking the rearview mirror more often than necessary, looking for a dark blue sedan. There wasn't one, but the seed of paranoia was planted. Back at my apartment, I tried to distract myself with mindless television, but Mike's research kept intruding on my thoughts. Evolutionary adaptations, mimics, thin places where worlds blur together. Around 8 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? I answered cautiously. Nathan Sawyer? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Yes, who's this? My name is Eliza Kovach, Tyler's sister. My breath caught. Eliza, I'm so sorry about Tyler, we're still looking. Save it, she cut me off, her voice hard. I know the Forest Service has given up. That's not why I'm calling. Okay, I said slowly. Why are you calling? Because Tyler contacted me yesterday. My blood ran cold. That's not possible, Eliza. Check your email. I just sent you something. I put her on speaker and pulled up my email on my phone. There was a new message from ekovach@gmail.com with an attachment. I opened it. It was a text message screenshot, sent from Tyler's number to his sister, time-stamped yesterday at 3:15 p.m. exactly. Still here, in the circles. Tell Nathan rules are wrong. Don't trust Diana. They know. This has to be a cruel prank, I said, my voice shaking despite my attempt at rationality. Tyler's phone was found. It's in evidence. It came from his number, Eliza insisted, and it knew you were involved. How would a random prankster know that? She had a point. We'd kept my connection to the case quiet, especially after the incident at Raven Rock. Have you told anyone else about this? I asked. The message said not to trust Diana, so I didn't. She paused. What's happening, Nathan? What does in the circles mean? What rules? I closed my eyes, weighing my options. Eliza deserved the truth, or as much of it as I understood, but sharing might put her in danger. The rules are safety protocols for rangers in certain areas of the forest, I said carefully. Things have happened there, disappearances going back decades. Tyler was in a restricted area after hours. And the circles? I hesitated. We're not entirely sure, but they seem to be boundaries of some kind. Eliza was silent for a moment. Tyler's alive, isn't he? Somehow. I don't know, I answered honestly. But if he is, he might not be himself anymore. What does that mean? Her voice rose slightly. It means there's something in those woods that can take people, can change them. I took a deep breath. If you get another message, please tell me immediately. And Eliza, don't go looking for Tyler. Not in the forest. Not anywhere. He's my brother, she said simply. I know, And I promise I'll do everything I can to find out what happened to him. Whether I wanted to or not, I was committed now. But please, stay away from Shawnee State Forest. After we hung up, I stared at the screenshot she'd sent. The timestamp bothered me. 3:15 p.m., exactly when Raven Rock became restricted territory. And the message itself, "Don't trust Diana. They know," sent prickles of unease crawling up my neck. What did Diana know that she wasn't sharing? And who were they? I was still mulling it over when someone knocked on my door. It was nearly 9 p.m., too late for casual visitors. I approached cautiously, checking the peephole. Mike stood in the hallway, his expression tense. I opened the door. "Mike? What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the apartment. "I found something else, something bigger." He looked agitated, pacing the small living room. I went back to the archives after we met, dug deeper into the Ranger records. The circles, Nathan. The circles are doors. Doors to what? To whatever's on the other side. And Diana knows. She's always known. Mike ran a hand through his hair. Records from 1978 describe an exchange protocol developed by Chief Ranger Alan Marshall, Diana's father. Exchange protocol? Mike's eyes were wild. They've been feeding it, Nathan. For decades. One ranger every few years, sacrificed to keep whatever's out there satisfied and contained. A chill settled in my gut. That's insane, Mike. Diana wouldn't what? Let rangers disappear to protect the greater good? To keep the forest safe for everyone else? Mike laughed bitterly. Why do you think there are so many specific rules? They're designed to keep us safe most of the time, but also to ensure someone eventually makes a mistake. I thought of Tyler at Raven Rock after hours, of the text message, "Don't trust Diana. They know." "We need proof before we accuse the Chief Ranger of sacrificing her staff," I said, trying to stay rational. "I have proof. In my car." Mike moved toward the door. "Files. Incident reports going back 40 years. Come on." I hesitated, something nagging at the back of my mind. "Mike, how did you get access to these records?" "The archives would have been closed after our lunch." He turned, hand on the doorknob. "I have a contact there. Doesn't matter. What matters is stopping this before another ranger disappears." "What contact?" I pressed. "You've only been here 3 years?" Mike stared at me, expression shifting subtly. "Are you coming or not?" Rule 2 echoed in my mind. If you hear someone calling your name, respond only if you can clearly see the person's face. I looked at Mike. Really looked at him. His face was Mike's face. His voice was Mike's voice. But something in his eyes wasn't right. Too flat. Too still. "You're not Mike," I whispered. Not Mike smiled, the expression stretching a fraction too wide. "Smart, Ranger. Should have played dumb a little longer, Nathan." I backed away slowly. "How are you here?" "The rules only apply in the forest." "The forest is expanding," Not Mike said simply. "Or maybe it was always bigger than you thought. The boundaries are flexible." My back hit the wall. "What do you want?" "To finish our conversation," Not Mike said pleasantly. "About the circles, about Tyler, about Diana." He took a step toward me. "Don't you want to know the truth, Nathan? Don't you want to help your friend?" And despite every instinct screaming danger, I did want to know. The curiosity was overwhelming, almost physical in its pull. "Come with me," Not Mike said softly. "I'll show you everything." My phone rang, shattering the strange spell. Diana's name flashed on the screen. Not Mike's expression darkened. Don't answer that. I lunged for the phone, grabbing it as Not Mike moved with unnatural speed toward me. Diana! I shouted as I answered. Nathan, where are you? Her voice was urgent. My apartment! There's something here pretending to be Mike. Not Mike stopped, head tilting at an impossible angle, smile widening beyond human limits. Draw a circle, Diana commanded. Now! Salt, sugar, anything. I scrambled backward toward the kitchen, phone clutched to my ear, eyes fixed on the thing wearing Mike's skin. What kind of circle? I demanded, yanking open a drawer. Continuous line around yourself. Hurry! My hand closed around a salt shaker as Not Mike advanced, his movements jerky like a marionette with tangled strings. You can't contain me with parlor tricks, Ranger Sawyer, he said, voice distorting. The forest wants you. It's only a matter of time. I upended the salt shaker, pouring a circle around myself on the kitchen floor with shaking hands. Not! Mike reached the edge of the salt line and stopped, face contorting with anger. Stay inside, Diana instructed through the phone. I'm 10 minutes out with help. Not Mike stared at me, then smiled again. That terrible, too wide smile. She can't save you, Nathan. None of the rules can. We're evolving, adapting, learning all your little tricks. He turned and walked calmly to my front door. See you in the forest, Ranger. Then he was gone, leaving me huddled in a circle of salt, clutching my phone like a lifeline, wondering if I'd ever feel safe again. In the forest, or anywhere else. I didn't move from my salt circle until I heard Diana pounding on my apartment door. Even then, I hesitated. Nathan, it's Diana. Are you okay? How do I know it's really you? I called back, fear making my voice crack. A pause. Smart question. Ask me something only I would know. I thought quickly. What did you say to me the day after Tyler disappeared in your office? After every incident, we update the rules, she replied immediately. It matched my memory, but was that enough? The thing pretending to be Mike had known things too. Step back from the door, I instructed, edging out of my salt circle with the container still in hand. I'm going to open it, but stay in the hallway. I approached cautiously, unlocked the door, and opened it a crack. Diana stood in the hallway, wearing civilian clothes, jeans, and a dark jacket, with her service weapon visible at her hip. Behind her stood a man I didn't recognize. Early 60s, white-haired, with a weathered face and the bearing of former military. This is Richard Oakley, Diana said. Chris Oakley's brother. The name clicked immediately. Chris Oakley, the ranger who disappeared in 1997, one of the names Diana had mentioned that first day. Mr. Oakley, I acknowledged warily, still not opening the door further. He's here to help, Nathan, Diana said. He knows more about this situation than anyone. Can we come in? I hesitated, then stepped back, allowing them entry, but maintaining distance. Stay away from my salt circle. I don't know if it still works once it's broken. Richard Oakley surveyed my kitchen floor with a grim expression. Salt barriers are temporary at best. They buying time, not solutions. His voice carried the soft drawl of Southern Ohio. What was that thing? I demanded. It looked exactly like Mike. Where did it go? Diana countered, checking my small apartment with professional efficiency. It just left after I made the circle. Said it would see me in the forest. I swallowed hard. Is the real Mike okay? Diana nodded. I called him right after you. He's at home, doors locked, surrounded by salt. He's fine. For now? Oakley added ominously. Diana shot him a look. "Let's sit down. We have a lot to explain." We moved to my living room, me keeping my back to the wall, salt shaker still clutched in my hand like a talisman. "First," Diana began, "I owe you an apology. I haven't been fully transparent about what's happening in the forest." "You think?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Tyler texted his sister, said not to trust you, said the rules are wrong." Diana's eyes widened. "He made contact? When?" "Yesterday, 3:15 p.m. exactly." She and Oakley exchanged loaded glances. "The text said he's in the circles," I continued. "What does that mean? And what did not Mike mean about an exchange protocol?" Diana closed her eyes briefly. "It's complicated, Nathan." "Uncomplicated," I snapped. Richard Oakley leaned forward. "The circles are boundaries between our world and theirs. Doorways, if you like. The things that come through, we call them mimics. They can't cross certain barriers. Salt is one. Iron is another." "Their world?" I repeated. "What are you talking about?" "The Shawnee called it the Echo World," Oakley continued. "A place like ours, but wrong. The European settlers called it Fairy, though these aren't the friendly sprites from children's books." I stared at him. "You're saying we're dealing with fairy folk? Seriously?" "Names don't matter," Diana cut in. "What matters is that these entities have been encroaching on our world through Shawnee Forest for centuries. The indigenous peoples had protocols for dealing with them. So did the early settlers. We've continued that tradition. With the rules," I said slowly. She nodded. "The rules keep most people safe most of the time. They're based on observed patterns of mimic behavior." "And the exchange protocol?" I pressed. Diana looked down at her hands. "That's more complicated." Oakley snorted. "It's not complicated. It's a deal with the devil." He turned to me. "In the 1970s, my brother Chris and Diana's father, Alan Marshall, were junior rangers together. They encountered something deeper in the forest than anyone had gone before. Alan survived, made contact." "Contact with what?" I asked, though I was increasingly unsure I wanted the answer. "They call it the Collector," Diana said quietly. "It seems to control the mimics, or at least direct them. Alan negotiated an arrangement. The forest areas would remain safe for public use, the mimics contained to specific sectors, as long as the Collector received tribute." My blood ran cold. "Tribute? You mean people? Rangers?" Diana didn't deny it. "Not intentionally, not usually, but when someone breaks the rules severely enough, like Tyler staying at Raven Rock past dark, the Collector claims them. And you just let this happen?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "For decades?" "The alternative was worse," she replied, voice hardening. "In the 60s, before the arrangement, the mimics took dozens of people. Hikers, campers, children from nearby towns. The arrangement contained them." "But now they're in my apartment!" I shouted. "How is that contained?" Richard Oakley nodded grimly. "The arrangement is breaking down, has been for years. The mimics are evolving, learning to extend their reach beyond the traditional boundaries." "Like the forest is expanding," I murmured, remembering not Mike's words. "Exactly," Oakley confirmed. "My brother figured this out back in '97. That's why he disappeared. He was investigating ways to close the circles permanently. the collector took him before he could implement his solution. I tried to process this insanity. So, what do we do? Call in the National Guard? Burn the forest down? Military intervention would be catastrophic, Diana said. We've run simulations. The mimics would scatter, extend their range, take more people in the chaos, and they're extremely difficult to kill by conventional means. So, what's your plan? Keep sacrificing rangers and hope for the best? My voice dripped with sarcasm. Diana and Oakley exchanged glances again. We have a plan, Diana said carefully. But it's dangerous, and after tonight, you're involved whether you want to be or not. The mimics have your scent, so to speak. What about Tyler? I asked. His text said he's in the circles. Is he alive? Not in the way you're thinking, Oakley said gently. When the mimics take someone, they don't just kill them. They absorb them. Their memories, their appearance, their essence. Tyler exists as a pattern they can access and replicate, but he's not independently alive. The text could have been from a mimic using Tyler's phone and knowledge, Diana added. Or, in rare cases, the taken individuals retain some fragment of consciousness within the echo world. They exist in the spaces between circles, neither fully absorbed nor fully themselves. My head was spinning. And you think there's a way to stop all this? Diana nodded slowly. Richard's brother left behind research, fragments of a ritual that might seal the primary doorways. Over the years, we've pieced together more of it. We need to perform it at Raven Rock, Oakley continued, at dawn on the solstice, which happens to be day after tomorrow. But we need someone who's had direct contact with the mimics, someone they've touched but not taken. Someone like me, I realized. Yes, Diana confirmed. Though after tonight, I wouldn't blame you for walking away, taking an extended vacation very far from Ohio. I laughed mirthlessly. Would that even work? They found me here. Distance helps, Oakley said. The further from the forest, the weaker their manifestations. If you were in California, you might be safe. Might be, I repeated. Silence fell over my small living room. Outside, a car alarm briefly sounded, then stopped. Normal life continuing while my reality collapsed. What about Mike? I finally asked. Is he in danger too? Yes, Diana said simply. The mimic that came to you might try him next. We'll need to bring him in on this. And if this ritual fails? I pressed. Then the arrangement collapses entirely, Oakley said grimly. The mimics spread beyond Shawnee. More disappearances. More not Mikes showing up in apartments across Ohio. An impossible choice, but not really a choice at all. Running might save me temporarily, but I couldn't abandon Mike. Couldn't leave Southern Ohio vulnerable to these things. If I help you, I said slowly, I want the complete truth from now on. Every detail of this arrangement, every rule and why it exists. Diana nodded. That's fair. And I want to try to help Tyler, or whatever's left of him. Oakley frowned. That might not be possible. Make it possible, I insisted. If there's even a fragment of him left in there, we owe him that much. Diana and Oakley exchanged glances once more. There might be a way, Diana admitted reluctantly. If Tyler has retained some individual consciousness, theoretically we could attempt an extraction during the ritual. But it would make an already dangerous procedure even more risky. I don't care, I said firmly. He disappeared on my watch when I called in sick. It should have been me out there that day. A moment of silence followed my declaration. Very well, Diana finally said. We'll modify the ritual to include an extraction attempt. She stood. Pack a bag, essentials only. You're not staying here tonight. Where am I going? My cabin, Oakley said. Iron fixtures, salt barriers, every protection we know. You'll be as safe as possible until dawn. As I packed a duffel bag with clothes and toiletries, my hands shook. Less than a week ago, I'd been a normal park ranger, my biggest concern, whether hikers would respect trail closures during nesting season. Now, I was packing to hide from supernatural doppelgangers while preparing for a mystical ritual at dawn. Diana received a call as we prepared to leave, stepping aside to answer it. Her expression darkened as she listened. What is it? I asked when she hung up. That was headquarters. Bill Harmon found something on the security cameras from today. She took a deep breath. Mike Brennan entered the ranger station at 7 p.m., accessed the archives, and left with several files. Except the real Mike was at home all evening. I finished, a chill running through me. Diana nodded. They're getting better, moving more freely, learning our systems. What did it take? Oakley asked sharply. The ritual documents, Diana said, her voice tight. Everything we've compiled on closing the circles. Oakley cursed. They know what we're planning. Then we need to move now, I said, surprising myself with my resolve. Change the plan. Do something they won't expect. Diana's gaze was appraising, respect mingling with concern. You sure you're up for this? Once we start down this path? I thought of Tyler somewhere in the spaces between circles, of the thing wearing Mike's face sitting in my living room, of the rules that had failed to keep us safe. I'm sure, I said, hoisting my bag. Let's go hunt some mimics. As we left my apartment, I glanced back once at the salt circle on my kitchen floor, a pathetic defense against the horrors waiting in the forest. Tomorrow we would confront them on their own territory, with their advantages. But we had one thing they didn't. We had nothing left to lose. Oakley's cabin sat on 20 acres bordering the western edge of Shawnee State Forest. From the outside, it looked like a typical hunting retreat. Weathered cedar siding, metal roof, wraparound porch. Inside was another story. Iron fixtures adorned every window and door. Lines of salt lay permanently embedded in the floorboards at every threshold. Protective symbols, some I recognized from various religious traditions, others completely foreign, were carved into the wooden beams. My brother started this place, Oakley explained as he secured the door behind us. I've kept adding to it over the years. It's as mimic-proof as anywhere on Earth. The real Mike arrived 30 minutes after us, escorted by a stone-faced sheriff's deputy Oakley, apparently trusted. Mike looked terrible, pale, shaking slightly, with a haunted look in his eyes. It came to my house too, he said without preamble. Looked exactly like you, Nathan. Said we needed to check out something at Raven Rock tonight. Urgent ranger business. I felt sick. What happened? I almost went with it. But then I remembered you saying Diana had put us on administrative leave, so we shouldn't be doing any ranger business. Mike ran a hand through his disheveled hair. When I questioned it, the thing just smiled. This horrible smile. Then it left. You're lucky? Oakley said grimly. Very lucky. We gathered around Oakley's kitchen table, where Diana spread out maps of the forest and the few ritual documents not stolen by the mimic. The original plan was to perform the ritual at dawn, she explained. But now that they know what we're planning, we need to move faster. We'll go in at midnight. That's during the restricted hours, Mike pointed out. Exactly, Diana nodded. They won't expect us to break our own rules. It gives us an advantage, albeit a risky one. Oakley placed an old leather journal on the table. My brother's research suggests the collector is strongest at dawn and dusk, the transition times, weakest at the peak of day or the depth of night. Midnight is the nadir, Diana continued, when our world is furthest from the echo world. The doorways are at their narrowest. Which makes the ritual more effective, Oakley added, but also makes any extraction attempt more difficult. I looked up sharply. You still plan to try for Tyler? Diana's expression was guarded. It's high risk, Nathan. The narrower the doorway, the harder it is to pull anything back through. We're doing it, I insisted. That was the deal. She nodded reluctantly. We'll try, but the primary mission is sealing the circles. If it comes down to a choice... I understand. I cut her off, though I wasn't sure I did. Could I sacrifice what remained of Tyler to save everyone else? I hoped I wouldn't have to find out. Oakley outlined the ritual while we ate a hasty dinner. The process sounded part indigenous ceremony, part Catholic exorcism, part quantum physics experiment, a cobbled-together procedure born of desperate trial and error over decades. The ritual requires 4 participants, he explained, each representing an elemental force: earth, air, fire, water. Diana will be earth, the stable foundation. Mike, air, the messenger. I'll be fire, the transformer. Nathan, you'll be water, the barrier and bridge. Why me as water? I asked. Because you've had the most recent direct contact with the mimics, Oakley said. Water is the element that can flow between worlds. The mimics recognized something in you, marked you. We can use that connection. I wasn't thrilled about being the bridge, but I didn't argue. Diana carefully positioned 4 iron spikes on the map, forming a square around Raven Rock. We'll place these at the cardinal points. Once activated, they should create a barrier the mimics can't cross, temporarily containing them while we perform the main ritual. What about weapons? Mike asked. Do guns even work against these things? Not reliably, Oakley admitted. Iron affects them, silver too. Firearms are a last resort. The sound attracts more of them. He disappeared into a back room, returning with an assortment of unlikely weapons. Iron pokers, silver letter openers, flasks of salt, and small bottles of what looked like holy water. This is medieval, Mike muttered, testing the weight of an iron rod. These entities predate modern weapons, Oakley replied simply. By 11 p.m., we were geared up and ready, each carrying a backpack with ritual components, weapons, and emergency supplies. Diana distributed heavy-duty flashlights with fresh batteries. Stay together, she instructed. No matter what you see or hear, stay with the group. They'll try to separate us. That's their primary tactic. And if we do get separated? Mike asked. Head for Raven Rock, Oakley said grimly. No matter what. That's where we make our stand. The drive to the forest was tense and silent. We took Oakley's truck, parking at an unmaintained fire road half a mile from our entry point. No official vehicles, nothing to alert the mimics to our presence. The forest at night was a different world. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, creating shifting patterns of silver and shadow. Our flashlight beams seemed feeble against the profound darkness between the trees. Remember? Diana whispered as we set off. They can look and sound like anyone. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it is wrong. We moved silently along the trail, senses hyper-alert. Every rustle of leaves, every distant owl call made me tense. The weight of the iron rod in my hand was reassuring, even as my palm grew sweaty around it. About a quarter mile in, Mike froze, raising his hand for us to stop. "Listen," he breathed. At first, I heard nothing. Then it came. Whistling. That same eerily familiar tune I'd heard my first day on patrol. It seemed to circle us, never coming from the same direction twice. "Keep moving," Diana ordered. "Ignore it." The whistling grew louder as we approached Raven Rock, occasionally interspersed with what sounded like children laughing. I gripped my iron rod tighter, remembering what Diana had called these sounds, lures. We reached the first cardinal point, north, and Diana quickly hammered the iron spike into the ground, while Oakley sprinkled a circle of salt around it. Mike and I stood guard, back to back, scanning the darkness. "Movement," Mike hissed. 2 o'clock, about 30 yards. I swung my flashlight in that direction. For an instant, the beam caught a figure standing perfectly still among the trees, a ranger uniform, Tyler's face, watching us with that blank expression. Then it was gone. "They know we're here," I whispered. "Of course they do," Oakley replied. "The question is whether they know what we're planning." We continued to the eastern point, encountering no further resistance. The southern point was similarly uneventful. Too uneventful. "They're massing," Diana murmured as we approached the western spike position. "I can feel it." She was right. The forest had gone completely silent. No insects, no night birds, no rustling leaves despite the light breeze I could feel on my face. The silence was absolute and profoundly unnatural. "Almost there," Oakley encouraged. "Once the square is complete, we'll have a perimeter." That's when we heard it. Tyler's voice, clear as day, coming from just off the trail ahead. "Help me! Please! I can see you!" Rule 2. Only respond if you can clearly see the person's face. "Don't look," Diana ordered. "Eyes on the trail." "Natan!" Tyler's voice again, desperate. "They've trapped me! I can't hold on much longer!" My step faltered despite myself. It sounded so real, so afraid. "It's not him," Mike reminded me, gripping my shoulder. "Not really." We reached the western point, Diana working quickly to place the spike while Oakley prepared the salt circle. Mike and I maintained our guard position, flashlights sweeping the surrounding darkness. My beam caught something reflective in the trees. Eyes, dozens of pairs, watching silently from the darkness. Not animal eyes. Human eyes, but wrong. Too still. Too intent. "Hurry," I urged, voice barely above a whisper. "Done," Diana announced. "Now for Raven Rock." The clearing around Raven Rock was bathed in cold moonlight when we emerged from the trees. The outcropping itself stood like a stark monument against the star-filled sky. At its center, exactly where we'd seen it before, was the perfect circle of white stones. But now there was something else, a dark figure kneeling inside the circle. "Tyler," I breathed. He looked up at my voice, face gaunt and pale in the moonlight, ranger uniform torn and dirty. "Nathan? Is that really you?" Diana grabbed my arm before I could step forward. "Careful. This could be a trap." "Tyler," I called, staying put. "Are you really... you?" He nodded weakly. "I don't know how long I've been here. Time works differently. On the other side." His voice cracked. "I can't cross the stones. I've tried." Oakley and Diana exchanged glances. "We need to start the ritual," Oakley said. Now. Whether that's really Tyler or not, we're out of time. As if to emphasize his point, the whistling started again. Closer now, coming from all directions at once. Shadows moved at the edge of the clearing, just beyond the light of our flashlights. Take positions, Diana ordered. 4 corners, around, the stone circle. We quickly set up, forming a square around the circle where Tyler, or something wearing his appearance, knelt. Each of us placed a small bag of ritual components at our feet: salt, iron filings, herbs, and other items Oakley had prepared. Begin with the invocation, Oakley instructed. Diana first, then clockwise. Diana started chanting in what sounded like a blend of Latin and something older. Mike followed, then Oakley, each adding their voice to a growing rhythm that seemed to pulse in the air around us. When my turn came, I repeated the words I'd memorized, feeling them resonate strangely in my chest. As I spoke, the air grew heavier, the moonlight dimmer. The figure inside the circle, Tyler, began to tremble. "They're coming," he warned. "They know what you're doing." From the forest came rustling, then footsteps, many footsteps, approaching from all sides. Flashlight beams revealed them emerging from the trees. Rangers, hikers, men and women and children, all with that same blank expression. All wrong in subtle ways. An army of mimics surrounding us. "Keep going," Oakley shouted above the chanting. "The barrier should hold." As the mimics reached the invisible line created by our iron spikes, they stopped, pressing against something we couldn't see. Their faces contorted in silent snarls. We continued the ritual, moving to the second phase, each of us taking a handful of salt and iron filings, casting it outward while speaking words of binding and banishment. The air grew thick, difficult to breathe. The stone circle began to glow faintly, a blue-white luminescence tracing each stone. "Nathan," Tyler called, his voice strange and echoing. "The extraction. If you're going to try, it has to be now." Diana nodded grimly. "Third phase, Nathan. You're the bridge." This was the part we'd added hastily, the attempt to pull whatever remained of Tyler back through the narrowing doorway. I was to reach across the stone circle, grasp him, and pull while reciting the final words of the ritual. I stepped forward, heart pounding. The mimics beyond our barrier watched with identical expressions of hunger and hatred. "Tyler," I said, reaching toward him. "Take my hand." He reached back, our fingers almost touching across the stone circle. That's when I noticed it. His hand, the fingers too long, joints bending in the wrong directions. Not human at all. I hesitated. "Nathan, please!" Not Tyler begged, eyes wide and desperate. "I'm running out of time." Diana tensed beside me. "Nathan, wait!" But it was too late. The Not Tyler lunged forward impossibly fast, gripping my wrist with inhuman strength. I tried to pull back, but it held firm, a triumphant smile spreading across Tyler's familiar face. "The barrier works both ways," it hissed in a voice that was no longer Tyler's. "You can't get in, and I can't get out, unless someone bridges the gap." It yanked hard, pulling me toward the stone circle, toward the glowing doorway that was now visibly forming in the air above it. A shimmering tear in reality. "The rules were wrong," Not Tyler said, still smiling that terrible smile. "You should never, ever reach into a circle." And as Mike and Diana lunged to grab me, the world dissolved into cold blue light. That was 3 days ago. I'm still in the forest, though "in" isn't quite the right word. I exist between worlds now, trapped in the space between circles. The echo world, as Oakley called it. It's beautiful here, in a terrible way. Colors that have no names in our language. Landscapes that shift and breathe. Time that pools and eddies like water. And I'm not alone. You'll get used to it, Tyler told me when I first arrived. His real self, not the mimic that tricked me. More ghostly than physical. It's not so bad once you accept it. He was right, in a way. There's no hunger here, no thirst, no physical pain. Just an endless twilight and the knowledge that we're incomplete. Parts of us absorbed into the greater consciousness of the collector. Other parts still our own. I've learned more in 3 days here than in all my time as a ranger. The mimics aren't evil, not exactly. They're hungry. This realm is dying, has been for centuries, and they need our world to survive. Need us, our memories, our essence, our life force. The collector showed me this, in images I still can't fully comprehend. Showed me the ancient compact made with Diana's father, the necessary balance, the rules that protected both worlds, until someone tried to change them. I don't know if Diana and Mike completed the ritual after I was taken. Don't know if they sealed the doorways, or if the mimics broke through the barrier once I crossed over. The connection between worlds has grown fainter, harder to access, but I can still reach across, sometimes, can still whisper through the thinning places. That's how I contacted Eliza, sending that text message from what remained of Tyler's consciousness. How I'm writing this now, pushing words through a narrowing gap into a ranger's logbook left at Raven Rock. I need whoever finds this to understand. The forest isn't evil. The mimics aren't demons. They're survivors like us. And the rules were never about keeping rangers safe, not entirely. They were about maintaining balance, controlled exchange, the arrangement. New rules are needed now, better ones. Rules that acknowledge both worlds, that allow for coexistence without fear. So I've written them, with Tyler's help and the collector's reluctant guidance. 7 new rules that might prevent more disappearances, might repair the damage done. If anyone from the Forest Service finds this, give them to Diana. Tell her they come from Nathan and Tyler, from the spaces between. And if you're just a hiker who's stumbled across this strange account, take it seriously. The forest has always been a place where worlds touch, where boundaries blur. Indigenous peoples knew this. Early settlers learned it the hard way. We modern humans have forgotten. I can feel myself fading as I write this, more of my consciousness being absorbed into the collective. Soon, I'll be like the others. A pattern, a memory, a voice the mimics can wear when needed. But not yet. Not completely. So remember the rules. Follow them. And if you're ever in Shawnee State Forest and see a ranger who doesn't seem quite right, whose face is almost familiar but whose smile stretches too wide, don't run, don't scream. Just nod politely and say, "I know the rules. We'll let you pass." Most of the time. After all, the forest must be fed. But the rules, if followed, will keep the balance. Will ensure that most who enter the Shawnee State Forest return unchanged. Most, but not all. Those are the new rules. This is the new arrangement. It's the best I could negotiate from the spaces between. Nathan Sawyer, Ohio Park Ranger,